You've been gone a long time. Where did you go?
Hey, Calvin Ellis here, and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today, a little bit of discussion. Well, I guess we can't call it a discussion since I'm the only one here, but I got to thinking, whatever happened to the man of tomorrow? And yes, of course, I'm piggybacking on that very well-known Superman story, but you have to do wonder, whatever happened to the man of tomorrow? I mean, we know that Superman's the man of steel, but he's also known as the man of tomorrow, which again means that he's this guy who's supposed to be from the future. And not so much in that he's in the future, he's from the future in the fact of his abilities, but also in his temperament, his demeanor, the way he looks at things. And I think at some point that's really been sacrificed by creators, which got me to thinking, what is the problem that so many creators seem to have with getting Superman right? It shouldn't be so hard to get a character that's so well established correct, but I mean, Superman has been written poorly for not a year, 2 years, 5 years. We're going on maybe like a good 10 years of inconsistency when it comes to Superman stories. We have the New 52 right now, and I'm really not a big fan of that. But even before that, and some people want to say, well, the New 52 is selling better than when Superman before they did the whole New 52. The 2 or 3 years before New 52 were some of the worst years for Superman on record. Not that the stories were horrible, but the decisions that they made for the character. They had him out of his own books. When he was in his own books, he was walking around in that grounded storyline. There was a period with the World of New Krypton, where he wasn't in his own books. He wasn't even on Earth. He was on Krypton for this other story. And these are big stories. They were big ideas, but they just never came together. And you have to then say, if the story doesn't come together, if the idea doesn't come together, what if you had 2 years with Superman not being in his book, or 2 years with Superman not actually doing things that are to the nature of the character? Now, the whole thing for these big ideas, again, is that you want to do big things for the character because he's a big character. But so many writers just don't seem to be able to understand the character altogether. And it seems to go back to when Superman was rebooted, the whole 1986 reboot with John Byrne. Now, a lot of people love what happened with the John Byrne reboot. But again, a lot of things were sacrificed from the Bronze Age in order for that reboot to happen. And then we also have to remember, anytime you come into something that's been rebooted, okay, you're getting it from the ground up. And yeah, if you like it, that's great, because a lot of the other stuff that came before, you don't necessarily have to deal with. But a lot of that stuff that came before is still good. And a lot of those things didn't come along with that reboot. So in some ways, I think they rebooted it so Superman would be easier to get their hands on. He'll be a bit more malleable, easier to control. In the 1970s, one of the famed editors for DC, Julie Schwartz, would tell people that, hey, look, Superman's a really hard character to write because he has all of these powers and he can do just about anything. However, one of the best Superman writers of that time period, Elliot S. Maggin, said that Superman's not difficult to write. It has nothing to do with his powers, but really it's about morality. And he's right. It's about his character. Okay? And of course, not every story is going to be about Superman showing us the right thing to do or anything of that nature. But it's a big part of the stories that Superman's character is going to lead the way, more so than the fact that he can fly faster than infinity. Yeah, you want to show him, and you want to definitely show him using his powers with a certain amount of aplomb, with a certain amount of significance and finesse. You want to see those things happen. But if you lose the character aspect, who cares? It's just another guy with powers doing stuff. And then it just becomes, hey, how can I trump this power over that one? So, the reboot with John Byrne did a lot to, and I mean, Byrne, you have to remember, Byrne in the 17, 18 months that he was on Superman, wrote he wrote in excess of 70 plus stories. That's the equivalent of 5 years worth of work that he did. So he laid a lot of groundwork and a lot of foundation for it. But at the same time, this is a Superman that was more malleable. He was easier to control. And he stayed that way for maybe about he was that way up until the death of Superman, when he fought Doomsday. After Death of Superman, that's when you start seeing him take on those Bronze, Silver Age aspects again, when he starts to get more powerful, he's going into space. And that's where a lot of writers start to lose it, because then they say, oh no, if he's this powerful, he can do anything, we got to try to scale him back. But it never looks good to see Superman getting, it doesn't look good to see Superman getting whipped on by somebody like Lobo or something of that nature. It's just not supposed to happen. Superman fighting toe-to-toe with Doomsday, to be quite honest, wasn't something that really sold me as, look, why is he fighting toe-to-toe with this guy when he has super speed and he could probably unleash like a good million punches in about 3 seconds and be done with it? But the whole idea was that, of course, we have to have a fight where it looks like Superman's really being challenged, even if mentally we understand, look, he's not really being challenged here. But again, it gets me to thinking, what's the problem? Why can't these guys get it right? And while there may not be a Superman Bible or anything of that nature, I'm realizing that there probably should be some sort of Superman Bible, some Superman commandments that go along with it. So, commandment number 1, thou shalt not depower Superman. Okay? Don't depower Superman. It's ridiculous. He's only going to get more powerful. A perfect example is Superman on the Superman animated series. When they started that series, they wanted Superman to be at the power level of, say, like maybe when he was in the Fleischer cartoons. And the Fleischer Superman was really powerful. This is a guy who slapped, remember, this is the 1940s. This is a guy who slapped a mountainside into a crevice so he could block so he could dam it up. He just slapped it in there. That's how powerful he was at this point. He was really powerful. Okay? If you don't think he was powerful, then you can go and you can look at the sequences. And even though it may not seem like it, if you look at the instances of what he's doing, Superman is really powerful at this point. Even in the 1940s, if he's not as powerful as he is now, he's the most powerful being on the planet. Okay, so the things that he was doing were, awe-inspiring at that point, and you want to keep that. But what they wanted to do in the Superman animated series was to, again, try to keep him along those levels where he was with the Fleischers. By the end of Justice League, which continues with that same Superman, we see, or we're being told that he was holding back all of this time, that he lives in a world of cardboard, and he's always worried about breaking or hurting or something, but, Darkseid, with mixture of Brainiac, he can take it. He can take the punishment. I'm like, you've been holding back all of this time? It's ridiculous. But the whole idea is that from his onset to the end of Justice League, he gets more powerful. Superman is never going to be contained in terms of power. He's always going to get more powerful. Why? Because you have someone like myself or another writer who gets on to Superman and says, I don't want to write Superman and he has to breathe underwater. That's ridiculous. It's Superman. I want to be able to take this guy anywhere, do all of these particular things with him. And as soon as someone has a good idea with his powers, that's it. He'll become more powerful. He gets a new power recently, as a matter of fact, but he'll become more powerful. In those instances, you have to work with it. You need to show him using the powers cleverly. You need to show him using the powers well. And it works. It doesn't matter how powerful he is if you're being entertained by that use. I mean, to be quite honest, most writers only use 4 out of his overall powers anyway. Super strength, super speed, invulnerability, flight. Those are the only ones. Those are the ones that get used most often. And they're used in such a commonplace manner that, after a while you just really don't care about them. They're just a given. You have to show them using these things cleverly. If they're not being used that way, then it becomes, I hate to say it, it becomes boring. But that's the first commandment. Do not depower Superman. It doesn't make any sense. Number 2, second commandment, don't put Superman in moral positions, okay, to see about putting him in some sort of fix to see what the outcome is. Superman has a fixed moral compass. He's going to do the right thing. If we want to ask, what is the right thing to do? Thank you, Pontius Pilate. Okay, we're not concerned about theoretical questions or philosophy, okay, or sophistry when it comes to Superman. Whatever the situation is, it's going to be right. I understand that people want to say, there's a lot of gray in the world. Yeah, there's also a lot of black and white. Okay, there's also a lot of things where you know what the right thing to do is, and that's where Superman comes into play. Superman doesn't come into play if, hey, if you're cheating on your wife and your wife is cheating on you, can you both sue for a divorce on grounds of adultery? Again, he doesn't come into play with ridiculous nonsense like that. He's about saving the people, okay, and helping the people. At the end of the day, the right thing to do is always going to be to help the people or to save them. It's never going to be wrong to save the people, okay? And if it is, then that's not necessarily a story Superman needs to be in. You get other great characters you can use for that. Wolverine, who can, in order to save the people, I need to kill the people. You can do one of those stories with him, but with Superman, it really doesn't fly. Putting Superman in a moral position, a la Man of Steel, okay? At the end of the day, all you do is split his fan base. Because of course you'll have some say, yeah, I'm happy with Superman killing. I'm glad he killed Zod or something of that nature. And then you have people like myself, no, I expect Superman to find another way. If I want to see a character who's going to be put in a moral position, there are plenty of other characters I can look to for that. There's shows like Walking Dead, okay, where I can watch if I want to see that sort of thing played out. With Superman, Superman is supposed to represent our highest ideals. I want to see those ideals on display. I don't want to see those ideals being questioned because, again, that's what he represents. And if we're saying those aren't our highest ideals, again, it's not conducive towards his character. Okay? So putting Superman in a position where, look, who do I save? Do I save Lois Lane or do I save the newborn baby? He's going to save both of them. There's no situation you could put him in where he would not be able to save both of them because he's Superman and because of the power set and because of the moral compass. So those sorts of things just don't fly with him. We don't want to see Superman struggle over who to save. We want to see Superman struggle over saving them. We want to see him successfully save them too, but we also want to be in the mix when he's getting this done. And we want to see him do it with such finesse and such aplomb, that it was such an enjoyable read at the end of the day. So again, the second commandment, do not put Superman in moral positions or ambiguous moral positions. They just don't work for his character. Commandment number 3, do not take Superman away from his supporting cast. New 52 has decided that Superman doesn't need to talk to actual people. He needs to talk to people, or rather superheroes like Batman or Wonder Woman, but talking to a regular person, no. Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, those guys have really been on the periphery. And the thing is, when you do that, then Superman doesn't need to be Clark Kent. And Clark Kent is as much as a part of Superman as anything else. If you remove Clark Kent from the equation, he's Superman all the time. And if he's Superman all the time, you're reducing the character. In a way, you're actually depowering the character. So again, without Clark Kent, you don't really have a full Superman. What does Clark Kent need? Well, Clark Kent needs people to talk to. Okay, that's where people like Jimmy Olsen and Lois Lane and Perry White actually come into the mix, but especially Lois Lane. Right? Lois Lane fills so many different roles. Okay, and she has from the very first issue that she appeared in, which Superman also appeared in as well. So when you take those people away, okay, when you ostracize Superman or you alienate Superman, again, how human can this guy be if he's not interacting with human beings? You have to do this. Okay, and the thing is, Superman himself interacts through Clark. Clark is our window into Superman. Okay, Clark isn't an everyman either, as we have to remember that Clark, for the most part, is an act. And even if Clark is still acting like a regular guy, he's still not showing us everything that he has to offer. And in that, it's still an act. And it has to be his act because, again, he wants to be Clark. He wants that downtime where he can just be a regular person, where he can just interact with other people as much as he can. When you take that away, again, you have to wonder, if you don't talk to people, this is even for a regular person, if you don't talk to people, if you don't interact with people, okay, if you spend 5 years on a desert island or something of that nature, it's not going to necessarily make you a better human being or someone who's more sociable. And without that sociability, we don't really have what we have as people. We don't have necessarily the social aspects or civilization for that matter. It's about dealing with people as much as our difficulties could be. But Superman's the guy who actually wants to interact with people. He likes people. Okay, so when you do that, you're taking a really big aspect of the character away. So again, commandment number 3, thou shalt not take Superman away from the people. Superman is a part of the people and needs to be with the people. Okay? Commandment number 4, Superman, okay, shall not be bound to any one particular locale. If you're having a tough time writing Superman, hey, get him off Earth, send him someplace else where you can change things up. If you're not doing that, okay, then again, you're going to be locked into Metropolis, and not everybody can write a great Metropolis story, okay, where something comes to Metropolis and happens there. Some people are much better at taking Superman off-world and putting him in the cosmos, sending him to Limbo. It's Superman. You can send him just about anywhere. Okay, but you don't need to bind him to one particular place. With John Byrne's run, Superman became, earthbound. He was concerned about Earth. He really wasn't too intellectually curious about his own background, about the technology or anything that was off planet. That really didn't come until after Death of Superman. Now, that works for a certain point, but after a while, it's like the 1950s Superman, where in the 1950s Superman, you have to remember, that sold very well. And those guys wrote story after story, and it was the same thing. Superman was always fighting a gangster. He wasn't necessarily fighting Brainiac. Okay, he wasn't necessarily fighting Mongol or anybody from space. He was fighting gangsters, guys in suits with hats and guns. These are the guys he was fighting on a regular time, and they told literally over 10 years worth of stories of this type of nature. You know, something will come here or there. He may have to do some time travel, but for the most part, he was just fighting gangsters. When you keep him localized in that sort of fashion now, I don't think you can do that. Okay, the Silver Age came and went. I don't believe that you can do a good story and, well, Superman always needs to be here, or I don't want to take him off here. No, Superman needs to go wherever the story is going to take him. Superman needs to go wherever the story is going to be best. If you're going to keep him in one place and you're going to keep him earthbound, eventually you're going to run out of story ideas, which should never happen for Superman. This is a guy who can go anywhere and do practically anything. Grant Morrison is probably one of the best writers who understands this. Anywhere is available to Superman, so take him anywhere. If you're going to keep him in one place, don't be surprised when he gets a little bit boring and a little bit mundane, and then, of course, the readership starts to go off. Bring him anywhere. And when you do that, that opens you up to a plethora of stories and a bunch of ideas. The only way that you could really get locked in is if you're just not creative to begin with. And if you're not creative to begin with, Superman is not your character. You need to write someone like the Punisher. And even the Punisher, you need to be a wee bit more creative. But the Punisher is a great example of a character that's locked in. Frank Castle is always going to be out there killing, okay, these mobsters. You would think with the amount that he's killed, there's none left. But that's pretty much Frank Castle's story. Okay, with Superman, no. Take him to Metropolis. Take him to China. Take him to the moon. Take him out of the solar system. Take him anywhere and tell the best possible story. That's the great thing about the character. Okay, you don't have to lock yourself in, and you're not locked in. And the final commandment for Superman, it's one from the Decalogue as well. Superman shall not kill. Superman does not kill. Now, I had planned on doing, actually I'm going to be doing something else on this, but just here to finish off these particular commandments, Superman doesn't need to kill. When you have Superman kill, you are really lacking in creativity with this particular character. The challenge of Superman is not the powers. Okay? The challenge of Superman is not the powers, as we said earlier. The challenge of Superman is his character, the morality. Okay? And it's not about putting him in these ambiguous moral situations. It's the way of saying, look, the moment that you have to have him killed, then look, you're not thinking. You can do anything with this character, and the best that you can do is to put him in one of these trite soap opera situations where it's, you're going to kill this person, or you're going to let these people die. Well, come on. We all know that Superman, just with super speed alone, would probably be able to sort out most of the things that somebody could actually put him in. If Spider-Man, in the first Spider-Man movie, can save both Mary Jane and, okay, that trolley full of people, then I'm pretty certain that Superman could do the same as well when it comes down to any of these situations. But when you have Superman killed, and John Byrne did this well, not well, he did this as well in his early run. And to be honest, it was a ridiculous situation. But again, I don't want to get too much in that, as I want to save that for another one that we have coming in the pike. But the whole idea is that when you have Superman kill, it becomes a sliding slope. If he's killing there, why is he not going to kill in the future? Okay, why work so hard not to kill in the future if killing is this final answer to the whole thing? Okay, why deal with Bizarro coming back and wreaking havoc a second time? Just kill him. Why deal with Lex Luthor coming back with another plot to try to kill you and maybe put other people at risk? Just kill them. Okay? Why deal with any of these guys coming back? Because they always come back. Just kill them. And once you've killed them, okay, everything is going to be fine. One, creatively, you're not going to have any villains for this guy to fight with. But two, morally, you've made him into judge, jury, and executioner. And he's not an executioner, he's Superman. Right? The whole idea of being Superman is to show not just that there's a better way in terms of the people inside of the story, that he's trying to show a better example, but there's a better way in terms of the writing. Okay? If you can't come up with a story for Superman, okay, where he's put in a situation, even if you want to put him in a kill situation, and he can't think of a better way of it, to be quite honest, I don't really think you need to be writing Superman. There are plenty of other characters out there that you can do that with, and your fan base will definitely love the whole thing. But for myself, and I think from most of Superman readers, we expect more from Superman. we don't want to see him necessarily, we don't want to see him kill people, because we know that Superman is this guy who's supposed to be able to sort out a way, okay? To sort out a way, and not just a way that inspires people, but a way where you stop and you think, hey, that was actually pretty good. I didn't see that, okay? I didn't really think he could have pulled it off. Right? So once you lock him into that, to be honest, it's really doesn't, there's really no reason why he shouldn't kill again. And Superman's not the guy who needs to be on the kill train. He's the last character who needs to be on the kill train. And so, the 5 commandments for writing good Superman stories and hopefully establishing the man of tomorrow. Because again, with the writing that I see right now, it's questionable that these guys really think about that aspect of the character. So, Calvin Ellis here, once again from the Fortress of Solitude. We'll see you back next time. Thanks for being here.